But the interesting thing where Coop is concerned, his career length is on a different plane from a lot of the superstars in the NBA, as Masai brought up, Mike.
Well, and that's the thing with Kyrie, the decision-making process with all of that is baked into what does the rest of the Western Conference look like. And if we can call up SOT 12, Masai Ujiri walked through the entirety, the litany of challenges that are before the Dallas Mavericks as they move forward.
You got Wembayama for the next 15 years. Luka, next 10, 12, 15 years. Anthony Edwards, 10, 12, 15 years. Shea, 10, 12, 15 years. Who else we got? Jokic, 5, 7, how many years? Okay, how many guys have I mentioned? I'm forgetting guys, okay? Now you have to convince me that I have to beat all those guys, okay? You gotta come with something in your pocket, okay? And in his pocket, he had Cooper Flagg. And I said yes.
Talking about Patrick Dumont trying to lure him to Dallas, that's the connection to the tail end of that soundbite that, hey, Patrick Dumont had Cooper Flagg in his back pocket.
Right.
I think that comment, though, is instructive relative to why he took the job, but it's also instructive relative to how he may handle the Kyrie Irving situation, because all of those challenges are right there in front of the Dallas Mavericks right now. Will they still look exactly the same in 2030? They might. A lot of those guys still may be exactly where they are and just as big a threat
Wemby's
3-4
22
years from now. Yeah, Wemby's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
But is SGA maybe on the back half of his career by that point?
He's
Jokic
27.
certainly would be on the back half of his
He's in
career
his
by
30s.
that. He's 31, yeah. Is it smart for the Dallas Mavericks to try to be great in 2027, or is it smarter for them to try to be great in 2030 or 2032 or 2034 when Cooper Flagg will still only be like 25, 27, 29?
Which is the crazy part. Like, when he's listing these timelines, it's like, you got to remember, Cooper's 19.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got to, by all accounts, if you're giving the runway that Masai was giving in those sound bites, Cooper's got a 20-year window, which is insane to think about, right? Like, we're talking about longevity, about how long Dirk's career was here. That's on the same wavelength, which is, it's enticing to think about, but the runway is just remarkably different for a kid that's already scoring 50 in the NBA.
But on the other end of that spectrum, as far as Kyrie Irving is concerned,
Exactly.
at 34 years old, coming off of an ACL injury that's had him out a season and some change, how does his timeline with the Mavericks stack up to all the timelines that he just laid out? Now, I will say, like, I don't think you can approach your, plan or whatever thinking, oh, we don't have a chance to win for another 10 years because of the guys that were just named. And I'm not saying that that's what you're saying at all. But I don't know. I mean, I think I've heard this conversation take place around other teams in the Western Conference, like with the Thunder being the juggernaut that they were. Obviously, they're coming off of a title last year,
And they didn't lose it capital like crazy.
They lost one game in their first 25 to open this season. You're like, how is any team ever going to beat them? And right now, with the way they've started out their postseason, it looks like, legitimately, what team is going to beat them? Now, obviously, they're not going to be able to stay this good for that sustained amount of time, but they're probably going to be a contender for at least literally the next decade. So I think he laid out a good point, but I don't know how Kyrie fits in.
If you are Masai Ujiri, and maybe we bookend this conversation here, if you're Masai Ujiri, do you trade Kyrie Irving?
The question boils down to is let's be generous and say 5 years of Kyrie's tenure left here.
That is generous.
I'm just throwing that out there. But is that time frame worth the potential draft capital you could get back in return for a team that doesn't have any? Right? Like that's ultimately the conversation we're having. Like, can the Mavs refill their coffers on the draft through trading Kyrie, and is that worthwhile, or would you rather have Coop learn with Kyrie on the field, on the court? Because I agree with him. I still want to see what that looks like. I want Coop to get that experience, to know what it's like working with a point guard of that caliber.
I don't know. I think could be a world in which they keep him for, say, a year, and then we're having this conversation around this time next season where maybe his draft worth isn't, or excuse me, not draft, but trade value isn't as high. But I think a year under, like learning from Kyrie actually on the floor is beneficial. I go back to like what Stephon Castle learned from one season under Chris Paul. You know? So who knows?
I think it will boil down to what they know about Kyrie Irving's health.
Yep.
I think if they feel like he is going to be just fine and ready to play, I think the smarter play is to let everybody see that.
Yeah.
Let everyone see Kyrie's still Kyrie. And let him and Coop play together for half a season. Right up to that trade deadline.
Right.
Maximize the value that you, because I don't think he fits their timeline. I don't think it's realistic to try and approach this through the lens of we're going to try and win right now.
But it also depends on what the
Nico
team roster
Harrison
build looks like, right? Like if they start the season well next year and they're competitive, then you can think about it a little bit differently.
But you're not winning a championship with Kyrie Irving and Cooper Flagg and whoever their draft pick is this season. That we just laid out how challenging the Western Conference is. I don't think you're matriculating, as great as Cooper Flagg is, I don't think you're matriculating through that in his second or third year in the NBA.
Probably not.
So your better play for an organization that has no draft capital whatsoever after this season until 2031. You've got 2 this year and then nothing for a long time. You trade Kyrie Irving, maybe next year at the trade deadline. Now you're talking about potentially adding to that draft capital for 2027, 2028, whatever that might look like, and you can then bolster your future with Cooper Flagg at the center of it all.